What's going on, everyone? Another rainy day, so I figured why not throw the tail tidy I got from Amazon on the CB500F. So I'm going to run through this kind of trial and error. There are some pretty decent instructions that came with this kit that I'll link in the description. So if anyone else wants to grab this, it was only 25 bucks. So I figured even if it's pretty bad, if I can make it work, then it's better than having this giant thing hanging off the back. So I'll go ahead and set up the camera and we'll get right into it. First thing you're going to want to do is take your rear seat off. If you've never done that before, use the key and you throw it in that little hole right behind here. Pull your passenger seat off, and the first thing you're going to want to do is just connect 3 wires that go to the tail lights and reverse light. They're going to be inside here. There's the little pieces, the clips. You're going to do the white one, the orange one, and the blue one, which I have just hanging around right there, because eventually those are going to get pulled out when we take off this whole thing here. So you're going to want to disconnect those first and then try to get everything out of the way, because I believe the next thing we're going to do is these 4 Allen key bolts right here. These 4 right here are a 5mm Allen key. They are pretty tight on there, so I went ahead and broke them already. As in broke, I mean like I loosened them already, but it did take a fair amount of effort. So just make sure you have a good Allen key, nothing that's stripped, and make sure you do have the right size, because the last thing we would want is to strip one of these. But I already broke all of them. I'm going to go ahead and remove all 4 of them, and we'll go from there. All right, so now that we got this guy off, we're going to go ahead and remove this Phillips head here, and then this Phillips head right here. Now that we've got those 2 Phillips out, what we're supposed to be able to do is put a flathead into this little slot here and remove this plastic piece. So let's see if it's as easy as they say. There we go. So now what we need to do is take the turn signals off on either side, and we're going to do that by taking off these little 10mm bolts, or nuts rather, on the inside of here on both sides. I pulled the wires through and got them out of the way just so that way I can get a tool in there to go ahead and get these off. I've actually got a quick correction. These bolts right here are not 10mm. The direction says that they're 10mm, but they're actually 8. So that was just trial and error, but they're 8mm, or if you have a 5/16 SAE, then that would work too. Okay, so then when you're doing that, what you're going to end up having to do is taking off this piece and separating it from here. And the way that you do that is to take off these 4, I think they're the same Allen keys as you used before, the 8mm, and then there's another one in front right there. So you remove those 4, these 2 pieces come apart, and then that enables you to have access more easily to everything that's in here. So then what you need to do is pull out those tiny bolts, and the whole thing should come out in one piece looking like this. There's a washer on here, so don't lose that. So 2 of these come out, and then there's also a rubber grommet that goes through here and wraps around here. You're gonna have to pull those out, as well as on each side there's these little metal fittings that are inside of the rubber grommet. So you're gonna pull out all of those, and then you're gonna migrate them over to the new piece and install them all over there. But the next step is going to be to take off this brake light right here, and we're going to do that by taking off these 4 Phillips heads. 1, 2, 3, 4. So undo those, and then this guy should pop right off, and then there should be another gasket under here to keep. And then I think we can throw this plastic piece to the side and start on the new one. And now that we've got the brake light and the plate light off, we have to remove these 2 8mm nuts on the inside of here, so that way we can pull everything apart right here. And then something to be mindful of, you are going to reuse this hardware, so you're going to pull the gasket off that went in between this and the reflector, and then these little I don't know if they're like lock wash or whatever they are, they're little spacers that go inside in between here, and then your nuts, and then the studs from here. So you're going to reuse all of this, so make sure you hold on to it, don't lose it, don't throw it in the trash. And now we can begin assembling this little gasket and these little washer spacer things into the same holes as we just pulled them off of. So you're going to find the same 3 holes that this thing fits into here, You're gonna press it through, making sure that these little lips right here go through this, almost like a little flange come through, and then you're gonna push each of these in on the back side. So now that we got these little bushings in here and the gasket in place, a little bit stretched out, but that's okay. So the gasket's in place, the bushings are in place. You're just gonna throw everything back on the same way that you took it off. So you're gonna feed the wires through this hole right here. Oop, this is wrapped around. Feed the wires through that hole right there. Stick this on, put the studs through, and then stick the nuts on the back. And then you're all done with the plate light. So now that we've done this, right here we can get the turn signals installed. You're just gonna do everything essentially in the reverse of how you took it off. So I'm gonna say the single hardest part of this whole like fender eliminator kit is gonna be taking out these rubber grommets from the stock tail, like from getting these out of, where are they at? These holes right here. The rubber is like super, super hard. It's not very flexible. And so trying to fit this entire flange, it's actually really thick through this, you really got to wrench on it from the outside and then use like a flathead or something to push this flange in just enough that the whole thing will peel out through there. So that takes a fair amount of muscle, I will say, to get those out. Or maybe my pieces are just a bit harder in durometer than other people's, but that was the hardest part. Otherwise, this is all like really straightforward. So can confirm getting these rubber grommets back in is probably the second hardest thing besides getting them out. But you just really got to go at it with a flathead and wedge everything that's coming through on this side, this whole flange here, through the smaller hole that's there. So really just go at it with a flathead and jam everything in there. I'm sure if you wanted to try to like lube things up, you probably could and make it a bit easier, but then just make sure you wipe everything off afterwards. You don't want it getting like all dusty and grimy in there. So just to save you guys from being like me, there's some spacers included in the kit, which I guess if you read the instructions a little bit more closely and don't just skim them like I did, you would know this. But there's these little spacers right here and right there that when you're putting the rubber grommet through, you need to make sure you put it through both this housing piece and that little spacer. So I had to pull the rubber grommets completely back out and then do them again, which is the worst part. So I do the worst part twice. So please don't make that same mistake as I did, but got everything together now. Everything's torqued down right. All the wires are going through the right hole. Now you just got to plug everything up up under the seat, pull these little thread protectors off, and I believe there's some little spacers in the bag that they provide you with, almost like some washers that go up under the seat. So I'm gonna throw those on and then bolt everything onto the back of the bike, and then we'll see how it goes. Just as a sanity check, I plugged everything in and just threw one bolt in. But yeah, everything works as it should. So last thing to do is put in these 4 bolts up here that they actually supplied you with new nuts to throw on. So throw those 4 on, torque them down. I'm probably gonna wrap up the wires a bit with some electrical tape just so they're not hanging out inside there like that. And then throw the passenger seat back on, and then we're good to go. And I was able to tuck the wires away actually pretty far up in here. So I taped them all together and then shoved them all up here so they're not just like dangling around here. But yeah, I think for 25 bucks, it's one of the easiest things that you can do to make a big difference in how the bike looks in its entirety, because that giant fender that was there before was not aesthetically pleasing, but this is just, it's nice, high and tight, very close to the tail end there. Yeah, 10 out of 10. It was a little difficult, like working with the rubber grommets, as I mentioned before, but otherwise, I mean, if you got like an hour to just fumble around with it and you have nothing better to do, then it's really easy, and it was very cheap. So I recommend. I'll link it down in the description if any of you are interested. I know that the same company makes a bunch of other fender eliminators for other bikes. This one specifically, I want to say, was good for all of the CBs, anything 2016 and newer, whether it was the CBR500R or 500F, 500X. But then they have other bikes that you can choose from as well. But yeah, like I said, for 25 bucks, I feel like very straightforward. The instructions were good. Just actually read them, unlike I did. But yeah, you shouldn't have any issues, and it makes a huge difference with how the bike looks. So thanks for your time, and I'll catch you on the next one.